Good evening.
Which is overwhelming.
The September 14th meeting of the Comprehensive Committee is going to come to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I would like to go around the room for introductions, and we'll start to my far right. Please identify yourself.
Ann McGloy.
John Pursuit.
Eddie Colon.
John Cantor.
Greg Totino.
Liz Axelson.
John Foreman.
Michael Cicero, Drake Loeb, attorneys for the committee.
Kevin Swoboda. Brian Ryan.
Michael Tremper, Camo Pollution Control.
Okay, welcome everybody. And at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth.
Okay, and
You're on the air.
I'll be brief because we really need to hear from Michael Tremper. I'm Liz Axelson. I'm with CPL, and I am the consultant to this Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. And we've been working for several months. Tonight we kind of have an agenda. It'd be great if we can get through it. And the first item on the agenda is to discuss wastewater and water systems and capacity with Michael Tremper from CAMO. And so maybe if you could give us kind of like a 10 to 15 minute sort of overview if you want, and then we'll ask you questions.
Okay, so I can do that. 10 or 15 minutes. I've done water and sewer my whole life, so I tend to talk longer than that. I'll just give me the cutoff sign. Camo Pollution Control has been in business since 1970. I've been involved with the town's water and sewer since 1978. So I have a long history here. My firm has a long history in the town of Fishkill. We do a number of other towns in the Hudson Valley. We do the town of Wappingers. We do the town of Cornwall. We do the town of New Windsor, the town of Newburgh, Orange County, and Harriman. So we do both water and sewer. And since I have worked in the town of Fishkill, and I'm firsthand here, we have 63 employees, but I spent a lot of my own time in Fishkill because it's one of the first jobs I did as a kid. So I've seen a lot of things change. To just give you a very brief overview, if we start with sewer, in the 50s and the 60s, when Seymour Arkway built the Duchess Park subdivision, which is located down off Route 52 and Route 82 behind the plaza there. There's a big housing development. Arkway built that plaza, built that whole subdivision. He put in a water system called the Brinkerhoff water system, and he put in a sewer plant called the Duchess Park sewer plant. And there was a sewer plant right there by the ball fields. And if you go watch your kids play ball or grandkids or whatever, you'll see two big cement structures. They are the remaining remnants of the sewer plant. Somewheres along in the 80s, the sewer plant became obsolete. Development was starting in the town. So at the same time, the city of Beacon had just built a brand new sewer plant down along the river. They had a lot of capacity. The town of Fishkill had an obsolete sewer plant and needed more capacity and not a good location for a sewer plant. So they entered into a contractual agreement with City of Beacon where the city would treat the town of Fishkill's sewage. That pump station is, like I said, right on the eastern edge of the town on the Fishkill Creek by the baseball fields on Route 52. The town of Fishkill built the pipe along the railroad tracks that empties out into the city of Beacon just over the border on Washington Avenue. So as soon as that pipe was finished and the pump station was in place, there was sewer capacity for Elmcrest, Deer Crossing, for the additional homes to go in, Cedar Knolls. Those homes came in. And then the village of Fishkill, they ran out of sewer capacity at their sewer plant, and they had all Westage, the Holiday Inn, all those hotels along the Route 9 that needed to come in. So their pump station then pumped into our pipe. So now we have 2 pump stations into our sewer pipe. We have the one down by the ball field, which handles the eastern part of the town. The village pump station, right on the Route 9, right where the radio station used to be along the Fishkill Creek, that pumps into the pipe that goes to Beacon. And there's a lot of town customers and village customers that are in that flow. That is Walmart's, the whole Route 9 and south area. Farther down that same pipe that goes to Beacon, there's another pump station called the Brook Pump Station. That's located right in the middle of right on the backside of the railroad tracks of the Brook subdivision. That handles sewage from Town Hall, Fox Ridge, Green Hills of Glenham, the Brook subdivision, all the older homes in there, the I-84 diner, the new Toll Brothers subdivision up there, Fishkill Woods, Rocky Glen, the BGB trailer park, and the pipe goes as far as Rocky Glen, if you know where that is, and it comes this way and then heads to Brook towards there. So those are the customers on this side of town. I'll call it this side of town. They go into a pipe that goes to the city of Beacon. That pipe flows approximately 1 million gallons a day. It varies with environmental conditions. Rain and snow make the flows go high. Droughts make the flow go low. That's a discussion for another day. We have a contract with the city of Beacon. Best that I know, I'm not trying to do Megan's work, but I think it allows for 2 million gallons per day. So we have capacity with the city of Beacon. All right, now that's a contractual thing that would have to be worked out. But there are no pipes that are not being used where we have blank pipes that are waiting for people to hook into. So that's this side of town, and that all is called, we refer to that as the Duchess Park Sewer District. There's a lot of little sewer districts, but that gets complicated, but they all end up in this pipe to the city of Beacon. When you get to the western side of town, down by the stadium on 9D, the town in 2005, 2004, brought out the D'Agostino people, and the D'Agostinos and Hudson, the Hovanian groups built a sewer plant along the Hudson many, many years ago, and they were going to service that whole area. It was a privately owned sewer plant. The owners of it did not put money into it, and it fell apart. The town bought it and built a brand new sewer plant that was commissioned in 2009. It's designed for 750,000 gallons per day. It serves Route 9D between Lamplight Village and Streamside Knolls, the Overlook Point, all those items down there, the Hudson Apartments. It goes up and does Stony Kill Woods on the east side of 9D. The total flow at that sewer plant, it's designed for 750,000 gallons per day. It treats about 325,000 gallons a day. So you have roughly 300,000 gallons capacity there. You don't tie in from, when you have sewer plants, the DEC only allows you to connect up to 85% of what the permitted flow is. Something that would have to be verified would be the thoughts were that when they drew the boundary to create the sewer district, to borrow the money to build the sewer plant, there's still a lot of undeveloped properties within the sewer district, and if those people develop their properties, that would utilize the capacity left in the sewer plant. So roughly, when you talk about sewer in the town of Fishkill, you have the areas that are served that go to the city of Beacon, and you have your own sewer plant down by the river below, across from the stadium. So that's sewer. Water is a little more complicated, or less complicated, I guess, depending on how you look at it. In the whole town of Fishkill, you have 4 wells. All right? You have 2 wells for the Brinkerhoff water supply, and the Brinkerhoff water supply is that same Seymour Archway system, and that the town added to with development. And they also, in the 90s, built a new well for that water supply. Unfortunately, early 2000s, mid-2000s, the health department determined that that well was under the influence of the stream and made it shut off. So the Brinkerhoff water supply pumps 275,000 gallons a day. It is under health department. I won't say you're under concerns from the health department because you don't have enough wells for what you have there, and you don't have a storage tank. So any ideas of making Brinkerhoff water larger at this point is not possible. You're at your maximum capacity. You only would allow a customer to come in if somebody had a well problem or a private home had an issue. The Snooks, so that's the Brinkerhoff Water District. The Snook Road, Merritt Park, the Merritt Park Toll Subdivision, which we all know what it is. It's the whole section of homes along Merritt Park. When that subdivision came in and developed, they put 2 new wells right by the Historical Society, right on the corner of Route 9 and 84. The wells were rated each around 600-700 gallons a minute. They built a 1 million gallon tank on top of the mountain up on 84. When you come up 84 and you head east, there's a big hill. You can't see it, but on top of that mountain, there's a 1 million gallon storage tank. Unfortunately, before the wells or the tank could be commissioned, the wells were tested and they were very high in chlorides. And what I want to just backtrack on Brinkerhoff, and I apologize for this. Brinkerhoff wells are high in chlorides as well. All right? So Brinkerhoff has a number of issues with the water supply. Only thing it's high in, all the other parameters are good. So with the Snook wells and the Merritt Park subdivision, and that was thought to be a town supply that we could expand as years went on because it's a huge storage tank, the perfect setup, but the health department would not let us use the wells to their capacity. They made us drastically reduce the capacity of the wells, and we had to put in a blending system where we buy water from the village of Fishkill so that if our water goes high in chlorides, we can blend water from Fishkill to bring it below the 250 milligram per liter. So whereas we have a well field that has an abundant capacity if it wasn't for chlorides, a storage tank that has an abundant capacity if it wasn't for chlorides, we don't have a lot of capacity in that water supply. Additionally, we sell water, the town sells water from that district to East Fishkill. There's a pipe on the end of Merritt Boulevard that heads east on Route 52, and then there's a meter pit by the pool place across the street from Rainbow Pools, and then East Fishkill buys water from us, maybe 30 or 40,000 gallons a day. When they had a groundwater contamination that IBM caused in the back there, IBM built that pipe so they would have better water. So those are the only well systems, our own water systems is the Merritt and Snook and the Brinkerhoff supply. We have a connection with the village of Fishkill for the Blodgett Road Water District. The Blodgett Road Water District includes Walmart's, Sam's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, A&W Root Beer, and all the toll over 55 community on the end of Blodgett Road. That water district, the water is purchased from the village, and the town buys them the water, and then we take care of the lines and the pipes and the meters and all the things that go with it. The Glenham Water District, which starts at the Church of the Nazarene on Route 52. It heads east on 52 to about Red Schoolhouse Road. It includes all the properties along Route 52, probably, BGB, Fox Ridge, Fishkill Woods, BGB Trailer Park, and where the radio station is down there. To the east, to the west, it goes all the way over to Old Glenham Road. It used to include Texaco and those buildings, and then it goes down to the end of Old Glenham Road, actually past Red Schoolhouse Road where it comes across from High Street. So that is the Glenham Water District. They buy all their water from the village of Fishkill. The Beacon Hills Water District, you know where Beacon Hills is, their water, that includes all, Beacon Hills is just Beacon Hills. They just replaced all the water mains within Beacon Hills, and then they again buy all their water from the village of Fishkill. They're actually connected to Glenham, so they use the Glenham district as a conduit, but the water, source water, is the village of Fishkill. And last but not least, you have the Rombout Water Supply, which services the same area as the Rombout Sewer Plant down along the river, Streamside Knolls, Hudson, the apartments, Lamplight Village in that area, the nursing home, the stadium, Stony Kill Woods, the other Stony Kill, Briarwood, River Road down along the river there, Rivercrest. All those people of the Roundabout Water District, they have an agreement with the city of Beacon and buy their water from the city of Beacon. There's a main pipe that runs through the old prison grounds, comes through the trestle there on 84 by the stadium, and that feeds that whole area. There's a contract with the city of Beacon, which I believe is 500,000 gallons a day. We use about 320,000 gallons a day for the Rombout residents. I do believe that capacity, if the, would have to have an attorney look at the agreement, not my interpretation. But I do believe that capacity is also dedicated to some undeveloped properties. Just to back up a little bit, the Glenham Water District uses about 250,000 gallons a day. The Beacon Hill uses about 65,000, or anywhere between 40 and 60,000 gallons a day. And I'm not sure of what the agreements are with the village of Fishkill for more capacity with them. So I hope I didn't talk too fast, and I hope I didn't make it too confusing, but that's what it is.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions, obviously, because I've got a committee working on these kinds of issues. And the first thing that comes to mind is are there any maps? In other words, if somebody wanted to make a townwide map to show all these. Now, I think Becky in either the water or sewer department has kind of independently created some maps using GIS information.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, is there a map somewhere, or should that be an objective in the comprehensive plan?
Well, I would think that would be,
out?
I would think to have an overall map, an accurate townwide map showing the water and sewer districts would be probably a good idea.
Okay.
Because councilman here has already asked, new councilman's asked to sit with me and meet with me. It would be nice if he could get out his map and go, what's this, what's that, what's this? I can draw it on a piece of paper, but I'm not a real good artist, and I do know it.
That's why I want to sit with you, because it's confusing, and it's all over the place, and for someone who hasn't been in it, like you have for your life, it's hard to make plans and understand capacity and...
Yeah, and to answer your question, we do need better mapping. The GIS maps that came from the county were not 100% accurate, and I'll be honest with you, dealing with maps that are inaccurate, you're better off having no maps. I'll be honest with you, they confuse issues, and it is important, I would think, for this group to know the boundaries of the sewer districts and all those things, and that needs to be clearly delineated on a map.
Yeah, and I don't, it's not going to happen by the time this is updated, but what I'm thinking is these would have to be objectives in the master plan to aid other aspects of some of the other objectives, looking at undeveloped properties and what can be done. But the committee, really were the ones that brought to everybody's attention that there were concerns about capacity with water and sewer, which is why we're so grateful that you were able to come here. Can I ask you one more question? On the wastewater, so the sewer wastewater.
Right.
A lot of municipalities, there is both stormwater flow and wastewater flow going into the same
Combined
treatment?
water and sewer.
So it is combined?
Well,
Okay.
ours is not. Combined water sewer is typically that of older cities along the Hudson
Okay.
River. Ours are supposed to be separate, and for the most part, they're built separately, but there is always a considerable leakage of surface water into sanitary sewers.
So they're not specifically combined, but things happen?
Yeah, when
Okay.
it rains, and that's why I was saying,
Sure.
environmentally, when it rains and snows and melts, the sewer flows go higher.
Okay,
And not only here, every place in the Hudson Valley.
of course, well, that's why I asked, because it's all for the Hudson Valley. It really is.
So the closing down of the prison and all that water that's supplied there, where does that come from and how much is that saving?
So the
Whatever
ci-
district it is.
It's not a town district. The city of Beacon served the prison's water and sewer.
I see, okay.
Liz, with your map idea, I think you need to include the places that are undeveloped,
Yeah.
but were supposed to be brought in
Right.
to the sewer as well as,
Yep.
I don't know, just the sewer, right, or was there water as
Well,
well?
there's water too, you know, like,
So that has to be part of that map, because you can't add on more if it's designated for something else.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway I'm getting is that whatever capacity remains, it's either already spoken for, or it may not be enough because of the standard of not going
yeah,
beyond 85%.
and that's something you need to look at.
Okay.
Because I don't know how the original designer of that, what he, anticipated what an empty piece of parcel. Is it gonna be 30 homes, 40 homes, 2 homes? I don't know what the thoughts were, but, and you see that a lot in towns, especially like at Rombout Water and Sewer. The town had to bond the money to buy it, so they create a district, and then everybody in it pays for the capital indebtedness. And, they anticipate, I'm not an expert on zoning or planning, but they anticipate what does, what could be built there, and that's what they use it for.
Sure.
So I have a question. So you're saying all wells have a problem with chlorides. Why does the village not have the same issue?
Because if you were to look at hydrologically how the wells, the recharge area, their wells more come from down around, the recharge area for there is Phillips, their wells are more Phillipstown, down that area, where our recharge for Brinkerhoff and even the Snook wells come from more of an easterly flow along, along the Fishkill Creek aquifer and along, the Route 84 aquifer. And, it's, I guess I don't want to sound like a wise guy, but it shouldn't be a shocker that our wells at the intersection of Route 9 and 84 have chloride issues. I mean, we do put an inordinate amount of salt on the roads, and Brinkerhoff, the Fishkill Creek is very high in chlorides. So anywhere where there's a lot of public roads, there's chlorides, there's an issue. And it's, again, the village doesn't have an issue, but there's a lot of communities that do. If you look up and down Route 9, there's not a good water supply pipe that goes up and around Route 9, but all the private wells are
Have the
all,
same issue.
high in chlorides.
Another follow-up that's fairly obvious, besides mapping, is there any kind of written description of what you just summarized for us tonight?
Well, over the years, I've written that description up for a number of your elected officials, but that's all it would be. I mean, I would say maybe if somebody researched the archives, there might be a written description when they created a sewer district or a water district, of what they are. See, unfortunately, because when you bought the Seymour Archway or the Duchess Park sewer and the Brinkerhoff water from Archway, there must have been a written description. The town bought it. There's got to be some type of description. And the same with, Glenham is just, that's Glenham water is very old, so it's probably something in your archives. There must be a written description.
Yeah, that's something that I think is typical in comprehensive plans when municipalities do modern updates, is to have a pretty thorough written description of these things. And so again, I don't think we can do that in the time frame we have left for our plan update, but it certainly could be another objective or recommendation in the plan to create such a written.
Are you talking about something that's more detailed than what he's talked about tonight?
A little bit more, but
Yeah.
not even so much of a legal description, because it sounds like, from what I heard, a lot of it is in written legal agreements with the providers and the recipients, but something in layperson's language that, town residents could understand. Why are certain things happening in the town the way they are, and why can't certain things happen unless certain things are fixed or improved?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do is, and I'll commit to this, because I'm very curious about all of this. It's not a long piece, but I'm going to listen to this tape again and transcribe it, and I'll send it to everyone. So no one give me a grade on that, but I want to have that. I needed to ask questions I needed for the future, so I'll do that for the committee.
Brian, as you may remember, one of the perks of our YouTube channel where this video and other comprehensive plan videos will be posted is that you can pull the transcript directly from there and simply correct for any formatting or typographical errors that stem from location names.
I forgot that new technology we have. That's true.
So besides capacity issues, both with water and sewer, what other things should we consider or think about related to this plan? Whether it's to change zoning so that, things don't get built where it will cause issues with later sewer or water issues, or things that we should look at.
Well, it kind of, you have to look at the protection of the wells you have when you look at this, and you have to look at roads and salts and drainages and all those things. But that things that towns typically look at anyway. And I always feel like, development is always a real controversial in every town, whether some people are pro-development, some people are not pro-development. And I don't, for me, I don't live in the town, but I always say that if you have to have development and you're gonna have it, you should make sure it benefits the infrastructure that you have. I mean, I've outlined, if we were to sit, in a different forum, and I could outline the problems, the mechanical problems, the issues that have held over, sometimes the addition of a subdivision, you get the guy to come in, or the developer to come in, and he can help you, he's not gonna do it unless you say, I need this pump station replaced, or I need a storage tank over here, or I need a pipe over here. And those are the things that are the positive part of development. The negative parts, obviously, are, just added roads, added salt, salt's a big issue, so those type of things, so.
That would be something we would have to think about. So if we do get a big development where a lot of things are paved, how do we mitigate that? Whether it's treatment or retention ponds or pervious surfaces, because we don't have a lot from, Liz has kind of sent us, there's not a lot of things that are not developed, but obviously over time, they could be. So things can be put in place to try and mitigate those kind of harms, like I said, instead of a paved surface, a gravel surface that's impervious, whether it's rain gardens, I know the city does, or, retention ponds where they hold that water and then maybe release it to the Hudson versus letting it go into the aquifer, those kind of.
Yeah, And it's just something your engineer can help you with, because there's a lot of things there, just like you're saying now, there's a lot of things available to you for that, and your engineer, you know, when that comes in, that's something they have to be tasked with, is to make sure it's friendly.
You know, Mike, I think this might be a good, I don't want to say pivot point, but to talk about the drinking water source protection program that the town's been involved in, because that is one of the resources that can assist us with identifying and mitigating those risks. Mike and I have both been part of the stakeholder group through DWSP2, which is a program overseen by DEC through the state. It is free for municipalities to participate in the program, and there are a number of benefits to us. For starters, the town received, through the consultants provided by the state, those being Barton and LeJudas and H2M, about $140,000 of free engineering consulting on this. So that's money that went to those service providers, but the town didn't have to spend any of that. We received their consultation without expending a penny of taxpayer dollars on that. They were able to view GIS mapping data, and as Mike and some of our project managers and the town supervisor and myself and other stakeholders were able to identify some of the errors in that GIS mapping and provide more accurate data. They were able to identify a number of risk factors for the town of Fishkill and our drinking water supplies. The first priority of those was chloride level contamination due to road salt. So identifying and mitigating the effect of road salt and the potential harm that it can cause our water supplies was item number one. Item number two is identifying and mitigating the risks to our water supply that is posed by high-density housing or high-density commercial development. So those risks which we're talking about now are part of the DWSP2 plan, which is being finalized right now. In fact, 1 week from tonight at the town board meeting on September 21st, the engineering consultants from DWSP2 will be making a presentation to the town board of the final DWSP2 plan. And once New York State has finished its review of that, which is expected to happen between now and the end of the month, the town board will be able to vote to approve that plan and incorporate it into our guiding documents. And one of the things which the town board has discussed and the supervisor has indicated should be a priority is taking that plan and referencing it in the comprehensive plan, just as that plan in its final form will reference the comprehensive plan itself, along with the other water source items which the town has been working on, including recent code changes and our aquifer protection overlay district law from last year. So what we're doing with all of these different programs, one is identifying risk factors and developing mitigation plans and solutions, and a public outreach initiative to make sure that the residents of Fishkill understand not only what's at stake, but best practices and other useful pieces of information for them. But also making sure that each of these plans and procedures reference each other to create redundancy, because the last thing you want in terms of any protection plan is a single point of failure, where if one single aspect of that plan is removed, the entire protection becomes at risk. Mm-hmm. So having all of these different documents feeding off of and referencing each other and calling for regular review and revision to reflect best practices will strengthen the effectiveness and make it much harder in the future for a developer, for a future government administration, anything like that, to undo the protections that these programs will be providing for the residents of Fishkill. And once that's done, we will introduce and bring before the Comprehensive Plan Committee the DWSP2 and perhaps attach it as an appendix or reference it within there. Obviously, I defer to Liz and company on the formatting, but it's certainly a very good thing. I think Mike can vouch for what an excellent program it is. The quality of the engineering consulting that we've received on it and the thoroughness of the process. We're very much looking forward to the presentation next week, and I think John and Brian and the other town board members will be duly impressed.
Mr. Tremper, going back to the 9D corridor, I'm going to write, I have a pen in my hand now. The water and sewer. The water is Rombout water?
It's the Rombout Water District and it's the Rombout Sewer District.
give me current usage/capacity.
So the existing Roundabout sewer plant has got a capacity of 750,000 gallons per day. That's the permit issued by New York State DEC.
Yep.
We currently flow, I would use a number of 325,000 gallons per day.
Yep. And the water?
The water flows approximately 325,000 gallons per day. We have a contract with the city of Beacon to buy 500,000 gallons a day. And John, I would always ask whenever I say the contract says this or the contract says that, that's my understanding. An attorney should verify the amount.
Understood. Thank you.
Was it the 85%, you said that the New York State only allows 85%?
Yeah, they don't only allow 85%, but when you start to add on and you hit the 85% number, you then have to start an engineering evaluation, whether you're going to keep going over the 750 or whether that you're going to stop it where you are.
More questions?
Yeah,
I got one. Has the town ever denied anything because of water or sewer issues? Any, like a development or somebody that wants to tap onto the system but wasn't allowed?
Well, I can't answer what they've denied. I do know, it's not a function of whether they were denied. There may be people that wanted to hook on and there were no pipes. We're talking about source capacity for water and treatment capacity for sewer, but there are properties where if we had capacity, there's no pipes out there for them to hook into. But yes, there are people who have called and said, I want to hook in, and they're either not in the district or we don't have capacity for it.
Okay. I imagine also volume of pipe, like trying to hook.
That's right.
You
Pump
have your...
stations play into it, the size of a pump station, the size of the pipe. There's a lot of things that play into that.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions from Mr. Justice that he put in. So I think we already know the answers to this. Fishkill has several water sewage districts. Is there an understanding of the daily sewage capacity for each facility? I think the answer is yes.
Yep.
Is there a recent measurement of each district's daily processing to measure usage versus capacity? So how often do you guys
Well,
run
you're
these
mandated by the state health department when it comes to water systems to go there every day and do daily flow readings.
Got it.
You are mandated by the State Department of Environmental Conservation to go to a sewer plant and read. There's a laundry list of things my people have to do every day. We read what goes to the city of Beacon every day. So everything is monitored every day.
I think the same question was just asked. Are there documented requests for sewer connections that were denied due to lack of capacity? I think we can check with
You would have to check
the building
with
department.
the planning department and the building department. That's not something I would answer.
And the last question, can any of the facilities be retrofitted to expand capacity beyond their originally designed limits?
So the sewer plant, the Roundabout sewer plant is what I would call a modular sewer plant. You could possibly add to that sewer plant. You certainly have the land. Now, it's very close to Overlook Point, but you do have some available land down there. That would be a question for an engineering team, how, the costs and how readily it could be expanded. But there is space down there, and it discharges into the Hudson River, which in many times the receiving waters limit to how much sewage flow it can have. The Hudson River does not limit. That's your receiving water down there. It does not limit that. So there's a potential there for additional capacity, for additional expansion.
My last comment. The town received a bunch of money in from Washington. I believe the town board voted to spend some money within the water and sewer district. Could you just give an overview of what's been done?
Sure, I can.
Since you did most of the work?
The Glenham Water District all the residents, all the homes I talked about in the Glenham Water District, when the water first comes from the village of Fishkill, it is at approximately 50 to 60 pounds pressure. In order for the higher elevations of Glenham, which is a lot, to have good water pressure, it has to go through a booster station where we take the water from 50 and move it up to 90. That station doesn't have a standby generator. It was built in the 80s. That's something that is unheard of today. So some of those monies went for a new standby generator for there, which was supposed to take 10 months to come in, and we're on 10 months, and I don't see it coming down the road anytime near. The same with Beacon Hill has 3 booster stations. When you have a water supply, even though it's not a vast supply, there's a lot of changes in elevations. There's a requirement for booster stations down there so everybody has water. They have numerous power outages in Beacon Hills because it's Beacon Hills and trees and wind and all those things. So there never was generators on the booster stations. So 2 of the 3 booster stations are getting 2 new generators. So there's new generators going in there. They were ordered the same time as the booster for the Glenham water supply. Additionally, there was a generator at the Brinkerhoff water supply that doesn't have a storage tank. It's a hydrodynamic system. That means the minute the power goes out or the pump fails, people start to lose pressure on the top of the hill, all right, or on the up. It's just like if any of you folks have a well system in your house, the pump comes on at 40 pounds and shuts off at 60 pounds. That's what the Brinkerhoff water supply is. So the generator there was put in like 78, 79, so we're replacing that generator so we have a more robust system. And plus, there were other improvements as far as piping at Brinkerhoff. At Brinkerhoff, the piping was old, obsolete, creating a lot of problems, so we replaced the piping, put in a new chlorination system to ensure that people would get a regulated amount of chlorine, and a new flow meter to ensure we had accurate flows. And in Rombout, we put in a bypass system so if we have a pipe failure, we don't have a long outage for the people on the northern parts of that district.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. This might not be fair to ask you, but tell us if it's not. But there are a number of areas in the town that are not served by public water or sewer, and I'm just wondering if there are areas where there are known issues with either failing septic systems or problems with private wells that we should know about?
You know, I don't know of any, you know, right off the top of my head. People do call occasionally and they have private. I know the road, when you come up Red Schoolhouse Road on the right, I can't think of the name of it, to be honest.
McGrath.
Yeah, those people have complained with water issues for years. I don't know. You know, I've never researched what the complaints were, whether they were warranted or what else, but they have looked for water. The road in behind the Fishkill pools has needed water. Those people have looked in there for water. So that's all that I'm aware of, but I'm sure someone in the town, if they call, makes documentation of that.
Thanks.
And I'm just going to throw one more thing in the mix. It's really just a point that, and this probably figures in with DWSB too, that the whole logic, if you get down to it, of the aquifer protection law has to do with the issue of too many septic systems being near each other. I don't know if that is an issue with any of the water quality in this area or not, and the law is sort of intended to encourage more central wastewater treatment systems.
You know, for the Brinkerhoff water supply, all the people in the Duchess Park area have central sewer. Have Duchess Park sewer. The location of wells, if you have private sewers, septic systems, and private wells, that can be a real complex development. Just for what you're saying.
Well, it sounds like there might be, there are quite a few sources, I think, for trying to figure out.
Yeah, I
The
think,
sewer districts are probably all, they were platted at different times.
right.
So it's a matter of finding those.
Right, this, for the sewers, you mean?
Yeah, and I mean, there is some information from GIS, but you really have to get down to parcel by parcel to see what district are they in,
Correct.
to be able to map it
That's
somehow.
right.
So I'm gonna try to follow up, I think it's Mary in the water department.
Yeah, Mary.
But
Mary.
I heard about it from Becky, and
Mary.
Mary had taken it upon herself to just learn GIS and try to
Yeah, I don't think
map
that
these
was
areas.
Mary. Mary,
that
that
wasn't?
was
Okay.
Barbara. Barbara did that, and Barbara's no longer here.
Okay,
Yes.
So-
thank you. I'm horrible with names.
Yeah,
It was
that's all right.
Barbara. Right.
Liz, speaking about some of the mapping, the DWSB2, I shouldn't say proposal, plan does contain a number of maps that have been prepared. Now, they don't include district-by-district boundary maps.
Right.
But they do contain some source water maps, so there are maps that indicate source water areas in terms of critical protection area, larger, 1 year, 5 year, et cetera, flow areas, recharge areas in the aquifer. And they also identify certain potential contaminant sources within those protection areas. So that is one of the resources from DWSP2, which I think we might be able to directly include with the comprehensive plan. And just one final note on that,
Yeah.
which I think Mike, he won't necessarily be able to speak to it, but I know that John and Brian can, is that being a DWSP2 community with the state puts the town at an advantage when it comes to obtaining grant funding for future water, sewer related projects, because we can point to the DWSP2 and say, this particular project, whatever it may be, if we need to do water main replacement, if we need to do other types of upgrades or mitigation things in the future, we can say, we are a DWSP2 community, the state encourages us to do certain things to protect our water sources, this is one of them. That puts the town in a stronger position in terms of grant applications. And in those situations, what residents benefit from, obviously, is that when those grant funds come in, that's a portion or even all of a potential project that might be covered without individuals, customers within the water district that benefits from that project having to foot the bill for it at all, which ends up benefiting everyone. The town is able to do that without using taxpayer funds. The residents don't have to spend any money, and the infrastructure that serves them becomes of higher quality.
The one thing I want to know is, having heard about the chlorides, has there ever been any consideration about trying to get away from road salt? I'm sure there's a lot of pushback because it's the cheaper,
That if you were to talk to the
Effective.
DOT people,
right?
they are, because salt's also very expensive. If you're sitting on the budget meetings for these towns, the DOT people are always saying they have a lot of new technology to help reduce the amount of salt they put on the roads. And, that would be more of a question for the highway people.
Right, okay.
So I know some of the things that they've tried to do is, you'll see now all your highway departments and things like that, they have covers over their salt piles, where they never used to have that before.
Which is a huge help.
And that's related to all of those kind of things. They tend to try and pre-treat the roads now before a storm. And again, that's a way to try and put down less once the storm starts. Or they'll use the hypochlorite, which is generally what you see them spraying out.
Of course, the problem is that even those chemicals are water soluble. So when the
They
snow
are.
ends up melting.
But in
it
other
does
words, they
run off.
are aware of it, and they are trying to mitigate certain things, and
Oh, yeah, best
we are in the
practices.
Northeast, and there's only so many things you could do besides just shut down the road.
Yeah,
So, and I know the covering of those salt piles was a huge
Yes.
protection.
And this is just my opinion, it's not any kind of thing, it is hard because the minute it stops snowing, people want to get out
Right.
and ride on the road. So when you cut back on salt, it's a concern, and salt is an issue. And so are PFOs and PFOAs.
But it is cheaper to prevent the pollution than to try and fix it after.
Especially with salt. Salt's very expensive.
Salt or,
It's gone up.
And the cost to treat it is.
yeah, it's astronomical.
Yeah, Mike, in the event that, you know, a worst-case scenario where the town needs to look at a filtration system to mitigate chloride levels, how much would that cost?
A reverse osmosis system, which is what you use, or a membrane technology. I don't know the cost off the top of my head. It would make your water supplies unusable. The costs would be ridiculous. You know, the sad thing about salt is it's really not a hazardous chemical. It doesn't create any serious health conditions. You know, even when we exceed the 250 that the health department outlines, we do notify the residents, but you don't have to notify them until once a year in your annual water supply statement. So it's not, and I'm not downplaying it, anytime the state health department sets a limit, you've got to try to stay within it, but it's not like it's an unhealthy water. They consider it an aesthetic violation, not a health hazard violation. All right, or if you have, you know, the new thing, not new thing, but PFOs and PFOAs, if we have trouble with those, then you have to treat those right away. But they are treatable with carbon filtration, but an engineer would talk more about that.
Well, we originally had you, you know, we were going to have you just kind of talk for half an hour, but this has been tremendously informative. And
Good.
I mean, it's a pretty important basis for anything that the town is planning.
Oh, I think it is. I think it's good people know. It's better you know than you guess.
Well, it's an important part of our infrastructure for the town to stay healthy, you know.
Right.
Both fresh water and then to remove any of the waste and they don't get contaminated. It's just as important as the roads or highways and, you know.
Thank
so.
you.
And I'm going to spitball and Jonathan jump in if you want, that, you know, if any of the underutilized or redevelopable parcels that are mapped, we've just tried to put together a map, and this is based on the parcels that Jonathan identified in his analysis. It sounds like there really isn't much capacity available, that there would have to be expansion or new facilities.
Yeah, I mean,
new infrastructure.
And the whole undeveloped property thing down in the Rombout area, somebody would have to explore and revisit that. And along with that, there has been sporadic starts and stops, interest of the Castle Point Hospital to tie into our water or hook up to the sewer.
So do you, just a question related to the village, where we buy water from the village. Do you happen to know anything about their capacity, and, you know, do they ever get to a point where there's too much of a draw on their source and they
Sure
cut
they
back,
do.
or, you
Sure
know,
they
what do
do.
they do?
Yeah, you would have to, I don't know their capacity and what they have, you know, but they have to do, when they go to hook up a new subdivision or go to sell more water to somebody else, you have to go to the health department and make a case that you have capacity for that. So, but I don't know what their numbers are.
But they guarantee us a certain,
Yeah, you know, they,
so.
as much as you can here.
Yeah, as much, yeah. In other words, there's an agreement, just like with the wastewater.
Right.
You say you can supply us this amount.
Right.
Whether you can or not's another story, but
Yeah.
it gives you a set amount
We've
that,
had-
that you have to try and get, you stay within.
Right.
You know, and it's the same with the wastewater, you know, you have a certain, actually, capacity for wastewater is a set thing, because you can only treat so much, you know,
Right.
the size plant you have. But fresh water is the same, you know, you only can pump so much out, so,
That's right.
until you'd have to expand on either one of them, so.
Before you depart from us, I want you to know that the next thing we're going to be talking about is an open house on Saturday, October 8th. So, if that's of interest to you, it'll be announced and all that
Okay.
business.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for the
in.
opportunity to come.
Really,
Appreciate
very,
it.
very
Appreciate it.
helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you do for the town. Thank you for your time tonight.
Oh, thank you very much. Everybody have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Doing good work here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Okay, so the next thing I would really like the committee to chew on, hopefully you're in the mood. You'd been looking at a comprehensive plan update timeline for quite a while, and as we're getting closer to, putting it out to the public and discussing it with the town board, Jonathan, in his wisdom and experience, gave me a call, and we had a whole discussion about how many hearings do we need? Is our committee like a special board? That was another question that you and I talked about, Jonathan. And a special board means it's like an appointed board that actually votes, correct me if I'm wrong here, Megan, that has to have a quorum and votes on things. But this committee has never operated to have any kind of quorum or to do any kind of voting. It's all kind of by consensus. So we're not a special board, but all along the way, there were always a minimum of 2 joint sessions where the CPU committee would be meeting with the town board in a joint portion of their town board meeting. So that's always been scheduled in here. So those are still in there. But Jonathan, do you want to talk about the idea that you had that we're now considering in the open house?
Well, it just struck me that I think in some of our earlier timelines, we had talked about the possibility of having one or more open house-like public meetings, informal in nature, not to the level of a public hearing, but simply an opportunity for the town residents and others to hear what we're doing with our plan update and to have an opportunity for some early, and now it's not really so early, but earlier than a public hearing input into the process. And so we do have things available now, like our draft vision statement and the survey, which had some amazing results to talk about with the people, and also to, at the same time, to get these things up and running on the town's website, which we were just talking about a little bit before the meeting started. But the idea of an open house is something that a lot of communities like to do when they're updating their plans, and it seemed to be a really good time to think about planning such a thing, because we are, starting to, I won't say run out of time, but we're starting to get deep into the timeline of the plan update. And so Liz and I talked for a little bit, and we seemed to think that it was a really good idea to start planning for something like that. So I guess we wanted to bring the idea, well, I think it's forming into more than an idea. We have actual plans for it, but we wanted to get some more ideas from the committee on, what that type of a format should include. And
More importantly, we want to make sure that everyone's there.
yes,
I'm looking at you, Kevin.
Hey, it was the Dutchess County Fair last time. What, are you kidding me?
I was in the city.
so one important issue is what kind of food would we have there, because that certainly would attract people.
Yes, that's important. I think food is important.
So this open house, are we going to have a presentation and then do questions? Like how do we want this structured?
Well, I'm always putting things in the outline. It's always something that you should know when I'm putting it in the outline. It's for this committee to throw darts at and chew on and see what they like.
I know sometimes you put out things like the day of before this meeting, and I just don't have an opportunity to read it. Like I work nights, so I have to sleep during the day. I'm a vampire, it's fine. And so yeah, I noticed like you had 2 more emails when I was sleeping, so I didn't have an opportunity to really look too deep into it. So can you give us kind of a quick overview? I'm sorry, like I said, I just didn't have time.
No, it's fine. What I usually try to do is get something out a week before, and that was the 7th, and then.
Oh, okay, so
The
I
next,
missed that.
No, it's fine. I know it's a lot.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot, to send you all. So what's in here is an outline, and I gave you what I call the tracked changes outline of the CPU timeline. So if you go right to, it's the second page, and it's item, here. Item 28, that's talking about this meeting tonight. And in there, if you go to item D, it says, discuss possible open house style public meeting on a Saturday in early October, on October 8th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then I kind of give a rundown. So it would be 10 to 10:30 would be pretty much meet and greet, an opportunity for committee members to go around and introduce themselves. I mean, imagine we'll need to have name tags and stuff like that. At about 10:30 a.m., we'll do some kind of a brief presentation, and I imagine, I would like to have some feedback on how you would like to work that, but it's intended to be brief, and I would think it's also intended to introduce folks to whatever it is that we have around the room so that they can come and give us some input, look at maps and things like that. And then 11 a.m., would be an opportunity, and that would go for like an hour, to go around and look at maps, survey results, the draft comprehensive plan. I threw in here a vision Mad Lib. Again, I'm throwing things in here that you can throw darts at. And then also, a couple of items where maybe we have a map up, or we have a sheet where people can leave comments about certain topics. So those are some ideas, and that would go on, I think, kind of at least 11 to 12. And that's as far as I got with an agenda, because at some point we'll need to have some kind of a wrap up, bringing people together. And, it's an open house, so I think people assume at an open house that they're going to show up, and at some point they'll be able to drift off if they feel like they've seen enough or gotten enough input.
So will we have the results of the questionnaire up?
We'll have the
or
draft
represented?
comprehensive plan update, the results of the questionnaire.
Okay.
We'll have some maps. I thought it would be interesting to have some comment boards, where maybe it has to do with traffic and transportation, maybe some of the broad topics that we had in the survey questionnaire to give people a chance to reiterate some of that, how important it is. It could be as simple as allowing people to write a comment on a sticky note,
Okay.
kind of thing.
Or a comment that we could put on a whiteboard, just like,
Sure.
public comment, here's
Yep.
10 of them that we didn't think of.
Yep. Ooh, a whiteboard's a great idea.
Greg, you're on that.
Okay.
I was actually,
Believe it or not, I think I've got
going to
one,
say a
so.
suggestion box perhaps where you could throw in a whiteboard.
Okay.
People can mess with a
Okay.
whiteboard, but you could definitely have it up.
No, but that's a nice idea for folks that maybe don't want to write something in,
Or even speak up, they just
or
want to
even
have
speak
a-
up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Liz, one thing I would caution is having too formalized an agenda for the event. In my experience with open houses, people tend to come and go. If you're
Yep.
going to have it in such a way that there's a prescribed meet and greet time, a prescribed presentation time, a prescribed public comment period time, that sounds more like a community forum than an open house. So if we want to do it in that format, I think that's absolutely fine, but I think we should, in terms of branding, we should call it a community forum,
Well-
like the event that Eddie put together last week with our town and the PD for community safety. But if we wanted to do it as an open house, then I think we should make it a bit more modular and interactive, where people can sort of
Right.
come in at their own pace.
Yep.
There's no necessary presentation, but maybe we can structure the way that they walk through the room in such a way that they're seeing content in a particular order, and when they are doing this, there are people who they can ask questions to, and when they get to the end, there are specific additional interactive elements like the whiteboard or the comment area, as well, along with an opportunity at each station of the way, if we're talking about breaking it down topically by different objectives or different overarching principles behind the comprehensive plan, then make it more of a walkthrough experience for them. So again, they can come and go at their own speed, and no one who shows up at 12:30 misses the nuts and bolts of what's taken place.
Right.
So that everyone's experience going through it is fundamentally the same, and that means that the comments that we get will all be from an individual who's just gone through a process and is now equally informed about it. So there's no hierarchy of the degree to which the comments we're receiving are informed.
Well, I like all of what you're saying, and one thing that I thought might be a great resource to do it a little more loose and a little bit more flowy would be if, and I think the greatest resource is the committee, and the fact that you are all folks that are part of this community, to kind of, see what people are looking at, sidle up to them, see if they have questions, maybe kind of take a role in ferrying them, around to see what is of interest. So I don't know how the committee feels about that, but to me, that seems like the best way to get people from the door and have them come in and see what there is to see and do.
Well, the best way to do that is to have food.
Yes.
Yeah,
Get the food.
there's that.
If we have food, they'll come in the door, it doesn't matter, it's getting them to engage in
So
what
what kind
we're
of food are we talking?
doing once we have them inside. That is the
Okay.
challenge.
Well, we could come up with
Yeah.
like a munchie type menu, a munchie midday type. Coffee and donuts isn't sufficient. I think you need something a little
Yeah.
bit more than that.
And when I was referring to sort of the difference between that community forum versus
version
an
better.
open house,
Right.
well, I think there's merit to either of those. And perhaps if we're looking to have multiple public engagement events, that an open house might be one and a community forum might be a second one that we could do over the course of, maybe one in early October, one late October, early November, before we're looking at moving this on to the town board. But, maybe someone wants to come to an open house but doesn't want to sit through a forum. Maybe someone would like to attend a forum where there's an informational presentation but doesn't want to go to an open house. Maybe someone's busy on the 8th, but not later on. There are, I think, ways to maybe do one of each or leave it up to the committee to decide which format they like better.
I think earlier, just listening to you, so we're still earlier on in the process, an open house being informal and getting more input from the citizens. An open house probably is a better concept. And as we get later in the process, when we all want to have, again, more interaction with the public, and we have much more of these things ironed out, then having that much more formal presentation where we're reading out what we have come up with.
Are
Is
we
probably a
inviting
good
the
way to do it.
village on this? Or are we just going to keep this into the town?
Well, this is specifically the town's comprehensive plan, so village residents
All right.
may certainly be interested. I would say that, residents of Fishkill and surrounding communities their lives will be affected by the work that this committee does in terms of steering the town of Fishkill moving forward. But, the degree to which non-Fishkill residents participate, I think, the committee might want to talk about that, but.
I mean, because they could be walking out and they said, hey, there's an open house here, why don't we go there and find out what is, I mean, I think.
I don't think there's
Well-
anything wrong with people learning more about what's
Yeah.
going on in the community.
The survey was wide open.
Yes.
The survey was never about, it was, and part of that is because your community is made up of people that either shop here, or come dine here, or bring their kids to daycare, or I don't know. So, I don't know, I feel like keeping that boundary wide open
Yeah,
is
I don't,
probably a good idea.
I don't think we should distinguish,
No.
certainly at least in publicizing it, because we want to get more people rather than less. And-
Right.
And, this, whether it's a open house or a community forum, that's not at the point where anyone is going to be voting on
Yeah,
anything
right.
or having, any more impact on what the committee comes up with than anyone else. So the more people with the more different ideas that we can hear, I think the better off we are.
But that's again why I was thinking like this open house idea is much better because it's still very loose yet. But as we get further on, the community forum where we're actually giving a presentation and reading what we have put together already, we're much more structured at that point. So we have much more to present versus the open house where you can interact with many different people and get a lot more ideas and
Start collecting ideas.
start collecting the ideas still, and also let them show what we've kind of have yet to still go through.
Right, and I guess the one thing, when I outlined this, the two joint town board CPU committee meetings were always part of it. And in fact, it's really a good idea to have two things. We end up with two hearings. So there's a joint meeting with the town board, then there's another joint meeting where there's the first hearing, another joint meeting where there's a second hearing. And that will be all preceded by the October 8th open house. The other big structural thing in creating this timeline has to do with the end point being the end of this year. So, I mean, I guess we could, I don't know. I don't know what our, I'm going with the parameters that I've been
Given.
And it's partly a budget thing, it's partly a time thing, and so having kind of like tried really hard to fit all this in, the first thing I'm thinking is, well, when would we do the second forum? So I'll just have to look at that, see how we do that. But it could be, go ahead, John.
Here's an idea, I mean.
I'm thinking between hearings.
Whatever we call it, let's settle on what we're going to call it, but I kind of like the idea of having a sort of a hybrid of an open house and a forum, where there's got to be some kind of introduction and telling the people what we've done so far and where they can find information and how to walk them through the maps and the stations. In particular, I'd like there to be an opportunity for us to report on the survey, because it's been quite a while since the survey was completed, and yet there hasn't really been too much out there for the residents to see or hear about. I think that would be a key kind of starting off with. So if we could think of a way to do kind of, I call it a hybrid of an open house and a forum, what would you call that, Greg?
How would you envision the parts of it?
Well, you could set it up in time frames, so you can have like your first presentation at like 10 o'clock. And then you can have another one at either 11 or 11:30, and they're much smaller, where you'd read out, or
I mean, just going over the survey could probably take an hour.
well, I'm not saying, the survey, I'm not sure that we really need to go, like, don't we already have it already kind of printed up, like what main concerns are? It's already in a visual kind of thing that we can have up. I was thinking more a presentation related to what it is, what we're doing, where we're at, maybe something along those lines.
And a summary of the results of it, because.
And a summary, yeah, but not like, because he was saying like you could have it just of that, but we would just have a summary, like these are the main concerns that we found from our survey.
Right.
And I think in terms of having visual aids.
Right.
At the open house.
At the open house
That could be a
aspect.
supplement to a presentation, or
Right, you
even
should have that, and then
be,
you
take a
can
look
have
at these results, and we can have some of the key tabulations factored in. For instance, of the survey respondents, where did you live? What items did you identify as
some
highest
very nice
priority? All
boards
these,
of
I'm
the
sure that we can
colorful
put together
pages.
some great visual aids based on, again, some of those more high priority bullet point. That's from the breakdown from our previous meetings.
You could also, as you were saying, the stations, just having a committee member kind of man the station, because I think that you're correct, Liz, in saying that there's going to be, and this is a Saturday, there's going to be a lot of people who do not want to come for 4 hours.
Right.
They may be able to like pop in, and then if they see these various stations and say, what, I'm really interested in what happened with the survey. Some people maybe aren't
Right.
that interested, but
Right.
they want to know about the mapping.
I'm interested in that, but not that.
Right.
So that sort of enables people to sort of pick the presentation they
Right.
want to hear. And if we do have an individual committee member or a team of them at different stations, talking about different aspects of the process to this point, and looking ahead at what comes next, then the people who come through can sort of pick and choose. You know, if they want to go through everything step by step, that's great. If they want to get the cliff notes on a couple of items, but they're not really interested in staying for the amount of time they'd need to go through every aspect of it so far, they can sort of tailor that experience to their own schedule or interests. And if you had an individual committee member at a spot, it also makes it easier from a presentation standpoint, because each person would only really need to be able to make a short presentation on a specific aspect, as opposed to needing to prepare a longer presentation that could be 45 minutes long, discussing everything, which is obviously more labor intensive for whichever individual or individuals is doing the presentation.
Kind of like a science fair. You know, when you have science fairs, you have each station and the person is there to present, and someone can even hop in halfway through that presentation but still see the visual and retain some of that information. Because I do think it's important. I would hate to have somebody show up and say, oh gosh, I missed the portion of the presentation that was the one thing, or the, you know, one of the things that I really wanted to see.
I also think that that kind of flexibility will get you a larger audience. I think if people are told, this presentation's at 10 and this one's at 10:30, and you know, I can't imagine anybody wanting to come for 3 hours on a Saturday to, I mean, it's very interesting to us, but I think a lot of people would stop in just for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, see what's going on, just out of curiosity, and, you know, rope them in that way.
Yeah, I almost kind of like that science fair branding, because I think that's a really easy thing to advertise in terms of social media on the website. Well, yes, we can give out medals to the best questions we get from the public.
With the committee members.
But really framing it that way, we can almost make it a bit more of a fair environment of, yo, come on down and learn about what's going on, and oh, by the way, there's food.
How are we going to publicize this?
We can prepare a flyer. I think we've already discussed doing that. I think I can rely upon your distribution skills, Eddie. We can do as we've done before, include it in our social media posts, our weekly e-newsletters. It can go on the town website, and we can make sure that the local press know about it as well. So
Send it to some of the same people that we sent the survey.
I think
absolutely too.
Flyers though work a lot.
Yeah.
Because when I did my presentation, a lot of people didn't see too much on the website, because not everybody has a computer.
Right.
Of course, I went out there and I posted flyers into the communities and all the communities, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Businesses were very welcoming of those flyers when we were doing the survey.
Yeah.
Nobody said no.
The library,
Yep.
places, I mean, I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, you want to do it the other way?
No,
Well, all of the
I'm-
above, really,
Yeah.
all of the above. would
I
be-
think, I mean, you could come with me just as a distributor, because I'm good at that.
Well, I mean, the more flyers we can get out, the more people we can
Yeah.
have here. So the science fair style of doing things, I guess it would be, maybe each member of the committee would figure out what would their focus be and what would they want, or. But, you know, one of the things, when you talked about the survey, we could make up some really nice, you know, print out some of the more colorful pages on large boards. And I guess presentation, if I was a committee member, I wouldn't be, I don't know, yeah, I mean, a presentation could be just something as simple as what's the blurb that you have about whatever your topic or your little station is, because people are going to ask you questions and you're going to get talking. So it's not, I guess I don't see it as being like a, you know, when we talk about like.
Maybe less of a presentation and more of an exhibit,
Right.
like a science fair.
So it would be, right, so it would be something
Too bad we don't have
visual
some
and-
experiments we could do with.
Would you want to do some groundwater permeability stuff, get some sand and pour the water on the top and put it in the glass?
Okay.
But I think it sounds like we're talking more of like an open house without, really not much in terms of introductory. I know that when I went to the one in the town of Esopus, you walked in and there were people that kind of showed you where there were different things that you could do or comment on or look at. And at some point, I think the town supervisor or a town board member or somebody came out and just talked briefly about the process, how had this occurred so far, and, you know, maybe an overview of, you know, over there is this and over there is that, you know, very simple, very casual.
I don't think there would be anything wrong with scheduling, I don't want to say a host or an MC, but someone who would serve, you know, every 15, 20, 30 minutes to just say, hi, thanks for coming to our open house, here's how the thing functions, come on in, you know, your refreshments, here are
That's a great
informational
idea.
packets, here's some paperwork that the committee's put together, whether that's, you know, a copy of our survey results or a look at the 2009 comprehensive plan, and then we could sort of move on from there into some, I don't want to use the old added, or the old image of the trifold board with the science fair
that's what I was
image, but that
thinking.
really does actually have utility, because the people
Yes.
can then pick and choose
Those are on the trifle.
which of those, so there you go, just put these up and have people standing next to it with one of those
Right.
retractable pointers.
I guess you volunteer for the job then, huh?
I don't need to volunteer, I'm just selected.
You in it, Greg, you in it, you're good at it.
And maybe the best way to do, maybe we don't need a period for introductions, we just need name tags.
Yeah, definitely
Something
name tags.
identifying, yeah, I mean, clearly identifying the committee members.
Yeah. Would, I think, also be interesting, not necessarily address this, because people don't need to know that, but it would be interesting, hi, my name is blank, I live in, and you can indicate what area of the town you live in, so if somebody might be a neighbor, that could strike up a conversation, et cetera, because it is worth noting how the members of this committee live in all corners of the town of Fishkill, and I think people who might be coming from all over the town would benefit from knowing that their specific geographic area of the town is represented on the committee, so that they know that it's not just, you know, a group of people from somewhere else who are making decisions that affect everyone, that really every area of the town is being
What if
represented.
when people came in and they got their name tags, you had like a certain colored dot for each of the little sort of areas of
Well,
town?
then you'd need to have a key.
That would be kind of, yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
What about putting up a board with large letters of the core of the vision statement, and then have a station where, you know, some of us could talk about how we came up with that, which would sort of blend in with the survey as well, because a lot of it came from that. And then have some way of getting feedback from the people who come to that station, you know, writing down ideas or thoughts or things they would like to see in the vision statement that we didn't think about. Anyway, that's just an idea.
It sounds like it would be good to have lots of different, I guess, boards. As
Well,
points
The more
of-
the better.
Yeah. Colorful stuff. Well, that's true, I didn't even think of that. You could have a CPU committee meeting running on screen. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Everybody to sleep?
I mean, I was going to say, but if we're on the TV down there,
So-
no one's going to want to talk to us, because they're going to be watching the riveting television program.
Right, of course. All right, so I'm just thinking boards, I'm just going to throw
I'm
this
looking at
out.
the goals and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can go first.
I'm just looking at the goals and objectives that we have outlined already, and should we just break that down if each station was, I don't know, one or two of the goals that we've set, so we can just kind of say, this is where we're at, these are the things we're looking at, and everybody take,
Like a section of the plan?
right,
Yeah.
right?
That's kind of a cool idea.
The-
Sounds good.
The vision statement, I think, I do kind of actually like the idea of having it scrolling, you know, I mean, we could use a screen, and there's museums that'll set that, you can sit, you know, in the corner, there's 3 or 4 seats or 5 seats or whatever, and people can spend 10 minutes if they want to actually read through the vision statement. I mean, I think the vision's, my own personal opinion, I think the vision statement is something that people should really be
Yeah.
looking at, and that might, you know, that way if they don't want to sit through the whole thing, you know, they can jump in halfway through, they can leave halfway through or whatever, but it would be pretty simple to do. All you would need to have is it scrolling on a screen.
Could you have,
Sign.
could you have someone reading it as well as it scrolling on the screen?
You could.
It's interesting.
You're welcome to do that.
I
But
think
it could just be an audio,
Just be a
an
video,
audio
yeah,
visual and,
just be a
and, you
taped
know,
thing.
playing quietly.
You hear that, Pete? We need you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do have to realize there is kind of limited time, so if we can't get some of that technology
Right,
underway soon enough,
yeah.
just putting it up on a board, I think would be fine. And have people, you know, read along with people or, you know, hold their hands while they're looking at it or whatever. I guess we don't want to do hold hands.
I said
Yeah.
we have a,
Only is like,
we have
okay,
a screen by
that's
the
nice
front
and
door
neat.
where it's playing, just right as you walk in, you have the introduction,
Yeah.
right as you get into the door.
Prepare yourself, because there's going to be a quiz inside.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to be fancy like that, then we have it like flashing along the ceiling.
Oh, like some of those Wall Street tickers.
That's right.
Or we could do it where it scrolls upwards and disappears like the Star Wars intros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, that's kind of interesting. I mean, even if you couldn't do a visual ticker tape like on a screen or something like that, you could make a long streamer out of it if you blew the lines of the vision statement up, like printed them out really big. You could actually make like a streamer all along the top of the room. Somebody tall could tape it up.
Oh, by the way, so speaking of ceilings and walls, are we going to be in this area or it will be here?
We're downstairs.
We're going to be downstairs.
Downstairs.
We've reserved the room
So
space.
the downstairs,
And the reason for that is because it's a lot more flexible in terms of putting chairs and tables in different places. There's
Yeah.
that's what I
a sort
thought.
of kitchenette-ish area, sort of.
Yeah, sort of.
and Stuff.
You mean on my voting room?
Yeah.
Yes, your voting room, Eddie.
Yes. Yes, it's just a little
Which
less
means
formal
you
than this.
definitely need to be there.
Oh, yeah,
And when we talked about it today, it was John and Greg and I were talking about it. Initially, the idea was, do we need to have it up here because we need the cameras? But it's not a public hearing, and it's not a public meeting, and there isn't any reason to record it. And I also think people might feel less inclined to kind of hang around and mill around and talk if they think they're being filmed. So downstairs doesn't have the cameras, we don't really need them. So the idea is let it just be like a big giant living room with some decent food and things to look at and nice people to talk to. I mean, it sounds like that's kind of the format.
Yeah.
There really isn't a need to be any more formal than that. And then I can take a look again at the timeline and see if we could squeeze in something. I mean, I guess we could do another open house or a forum later. It would probably have to be between, hang on a second here.
I would suggest an evening.
Wouldn't the joint town board meetings serve that purpose also? I mean, if
Well,
we're,
that was the thinking originally, is that it would be,
I mean, anybody can come to a town board meeting too.
right.
So,
That was the idea, that the committee would be having a meeting with the town board, and
And it
the
would be
public
open.
could hear the discussion, and I suppose.
yeah.
Yeah,
could ask
although
questions.
I was going to say that we would need to schedule that on a town board side to allow for public comment, because otherwise, generally speaking, presentations, which is what it would be considered on a town board agenda, the committee would make a presentation, the board would be able to ask questions, but there's no immediate structure in the town board in that situation for the public to ask questions. So we would probably want to structure it as we did earlier this year when the Central Hudson representatives came and spoke at the town board, and then the board opened the floor for questions for the residents. And that, again, is something that we would want to
I think it's-
put out advance notice of, as we did
That's what we
then,
do.
to draw people to the meeting.
I think that's your second meeting, is doing that, so, you know, I mean, given the time
Yeah,
constraints, you know.
When you're saying second meeting, are you talking about?
Well, you're talking
Second
about
open house meeting.
open house, which should be that, you know,
You combine the two. You have a open to the public as well as a
comments on the.
It looks
common
like we
town
have-
board.
Yeah.
It looks like we have
Combination.
joint town board meeting scheduled for October 19th and November 2nd.
So we could make one of those
Right. And
our second event.
Let
Right.
me start, okay, hang on a second.
Probably the November one.
Hang on. Where's the first town board joint one? What's the date? Okay.
That's all.
I'm just on the wrong page, sorry.
No, you were on the right page.
No, I was on the right page.
Yep, towards the top,
There.
in red.
Okay, so it's October 19th and November 2, but keep in mind, October 19th is, so that'll be our first joint meeting, is that really true? Okay, so that's our first joint meeting with the town board, and at that meeting, at the October 19th meeting, the idea is that there'll be this joint committee meeting, but that also the town board is going to take action to set a public hearing for November 16th, I'm pretty sure.
And then I would just float out the idea that we introduce it on the 19th, the town board takes its action to set the public hearing, and then in advance of that public hearing, we use the November 2nd meeting as the opportunity to hold a more public information session-style presentation as sort of a lead-in to the public hearing at the following meeting after that.
So the October 19th would be a little bit more official,
Yeah,
because they're initiating their secret review.
right,
And then the November 2nd
we would
would be
open it
the
up.
more,
to the
Kind of like
public.
the Central Hudson meeting we had.
Yes. And
Questions
then,
and answers,
So it'd
public
be-
gets to speak, ask questions.
CPU with town board, and then open to public
November 2nd.
questions.
on November 2nd, and then on the 16th, we would open and potentially close the public hearing, depending on the types of comments we
Just,
receive.
you're going a little too fast, just let me catch up here. So November 2nd is the joint meeting, but it's open for the public to ask questions, but it's
Yes.
not a public hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, question, on November 2nd, where are you going to conduct this meeting?
It will be a town board meeting, so it'll be in this room.
Yep.
You can't do it downstairs, because that's what we do.
No. We're going to do it right here in the normal.
No,
here in the-
I'm just saying, because the primary starts at 29,
Yes.
November 8th
Oh,
downstairs.
right.
So that's occupied, so
Yeah.
that's
We're
why
doing
I'm
a town
pushing.
board meeting.
No, we'll have to bust out this wall and have a big,
You got it.
I would think,
Open for.
Oh, yeah, we'll fully open the
Yeah.
divider here.
yeah. Okay, so we've got another opportunity for a little bit more dialogue on October 2nd. And then, it's November 16th, right?
For the public hearing?
For the public hearing, yep. And, let's see. So then the possibility of throwing another open housey type,
don't know.
that's where it got to be.
I don't think it's going to be
Yeah.
necessary.
I don't think.
If we were talking about having two events, having one of those be the second of our two
Right,
non-public hearing town board sessions makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Okay, good.
because we're on a shorter timeline, so let's
Okay, good.
double up if we can.
But the only thing to consider for that is that, I'm sure the town board will have other business to conduct at that joint meeting, so, we won't have quite as much time as we would have had if we had a separate community forum type of meeting, but I think we can tailor it to whatever time we have and just,
And we'll schedule that to be the beginning of the meeting.
Yes,
yeah.
because that's when
So
people,
we don't torture everybody.
well, and also because if people are coming out,
Nah,
Yeah.
Right.
you guys can stay till
Which part do
11.
you think is the torture, the more interesting comprehensive plan stuff, or the?
No, having to sit through 3 hours of town board meeting before you're able to speak. No, that's the torture. That's why the
gonna have-
meetings have been structured the way that they have been for the past 2.5 years.
John, we're going to have a planning board meeting up on the video, so everybody can
Okay.
watch that at the same time.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, so I think we know that we can schedule this as an open house. And we know that we can get a flyer together as an open house. And I wrote probably some very dry stuff and sent it over to Greg and
Don't worry, I'll add some flavor
Jonathan
and
and
color.
John. And, it's just plain face type So,
all
but
spiced up.
that's why you hire a bean counter. I got the who, what, where, why, and when.
There you go.
And then you guys will make it exciting,
I'm sure John and I can put our heads together on that.
Sure.
so.
The only thing I did notice is you want to be clear on the meeting room location, because it wasn't clear that it's going to be like
Yeah, I didn't know how.
downstairs.
Oh, don't worry, we'll be sure to include that on the
On the
Yeah.
flyer.
flyer.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I didn't know how you described what kind of room
We
is it?
call it the town hall community room in the basement, and so I'll indicate, and we
So
can put
basement. I
signage.
just didn't know what to say.
We can put signage outside as well that indicates, go down the ramp or go down the stairs and use the alternative entrance, because if you want to come in the main entrance, like you were going to go see court or pay your taxes, that will not get you to where you want to go.
If you vote at town hall, go there.
That's another great way to put it. Member of the garden club, go down there.
That's right.
So you do call it the basement.
Yes. Fun fact for you, Liz, that was also, once upon a time, our town police station.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Cells and everything?
I couldn't speak to that, I was never in the,
All right, and then, let's see, where are we at for time?
yeah, Liz, I think we've had productive meeting, we should table the other discussion until
Okay.
our next one.
All right,
We are meeting the 28th, are we not?
yes.
Yeah, I would say that while we did have one more item about the track changes, that given how productive this meeting has been with what we've covered so far, that we table that until the 28th and have a more robust discussion then. I just think knowing how...
Looking for heads nodding.
Just knowing how the timeline we try to keep for these meetings, I don't want our discussion on those matters to be rushed or abbreviated, so...
Very good.
I agree.
Okay,
I will mention I will not be able to be here on the September 28th meeting, but I had substantial comments on the outline that are
Good.
already incorporated, so I've had my say.
do you have more comments?
No,
Okay,
no, I got worn out doing that.
and there's still more to be inserted there.
Of course.
So that's good, that'll give me kind of a breather to try to get that to you more quickly. Sounds like we're adjourning?
But we should get commitments of people saying, yes, I would love to come to the open house and help participate in all the stations and everything. I am one who will do that.
I'll be there, and I asked Megan, our cartographer, to come. She's a planner. Oh,
John Form will be
I meant Megan at my office. Megan at my office. Sorry, Megan.
I will make every attempt to be here, I'll tell you.
vampire.
We'll see.
Jose.
So I don't know, well, you just said I don't need to be there,
She doesn't have to be there.
and
for the open
I'm
house, right?
scheduled to not be in town, but if you did want someone there, I could arrange for that. Okay.
Open house?
If you can get out of town, do it.
We might need you to get us out, bail or something like that, so maybe be available at least for like a video conference,
Keep your cell phone on.
Yeah.
I work on Saturdays.
Of course.
And also, since there are quite a few committee members who aren't here tonight, we should reach out to them and try
Okay.
to get commitments from them as well.
Agreed.
Now, are you going to need committee members to craft any of these stations, or is that something that we can just walk into?
I feel like I have a lot of ideas for making some pretty big boards that could be points of discussion, because the Survey Monkey results, some of those graphs are pretty. I think.
That's what I was thinking, you
They're
could just put them right up, and they were very
And, yeah,
simple to look
you know,
at and understand.
Print them as like a 24 by 36 standing this way.
Right.
It'll brighten up the room, people, I don't know. I feel like those are good ideas. Maps are good ideas.
Mission statement.
Having a couple, copies of whatever the draft comprehensive plan update is at that time, if people want to leaf through it, maybe have 5 of them that are just binder clips so people could look at it. And you have a list here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And someone said something about a Mad Lib, is that?
I mentioned the Mad Lib, but I really just threw that in there so that you would say, oh my God, that's stupid. I'd be happy to do
I love
it.
Mad Libs, come on.
That's
know.
what I think. All right, I will do the Mad Lib then.
Whiteboard, you can do both, you do it on the whiteboard, now you whiteboard and get your Mad Lib,
idea.
guys.
You mean write it on the whiteboards?
No, I was going to say, that sounds like it's going to devolve into Pictionary.
Somebody will need, no, a Mad Lib with a vision statement? Any other area that seems like it would be a good Mad Lib? I think the vision statement.
I think it's great. I mean, anything to get people, because sometimes people don't necessarily want to offer their thoughts, but if it's kind of made into an interactive
Right,
game per se,
yep,
all about the party games.
okay.
Okay, so thank you for everybody for attending. Thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you to Mike Tremper from Camo Pollution for spending an hour with us. We are adjourning. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 28th, 7 p.m., right here at Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Can I